I want to talk a little bit about the Hardy Boys too, because that was a book series that my dad read that he introduced to me, and then I read a bunch of the Hardy Boys books. So when you're going onto a show like that with existing intellectual property, do you feel a certain pressure to deliver to the fans in an authentic way, and how do you make sure you're doing that?
For sure. I mean, that show had many iterations from the very beginning. Originally, it was going to be a half-hour show, and every half hour was going to be a mystery. And when I first met with them, my first question was, how? Like a half an hour episode is like 21 minutes, right? How can you tell a mystery from beginning to end in 21 minutes? Second question was, are we keeping this? What time period are we keeping this in? Because Hardy Boys doesn't really work that well in, present day. It's like, we'll just Google the information. Here's the guy. Anyway, so yes. I grew up with the books too. I had the books. My cottage had the books. I read the books to my son, which actually was very interesting for me. Right before I met with them, I read one of the books to my son, and every single clue, he was like closer and closer and closer to me for. And I found like every single one of them ended kind of like, and then it's over. Like the ending wasn't sensational, but the clue finding was amazing. So I felt like that was a very important part to like hone in on with the audience. Now, the show ended up becoming a 1 hour dramatic series, and it was a serial crime. So over the course, it wasn't like a crime of the week. It was an overarching crime. So that was very interesting. And so I feel we were able to step away from what the audience was likely expecting to tell a different spin on the Hardy Boys.
The idea of like staying true to the characters, but also putting a spin on it and making it your own, I think is the sweet spot. I think that's a good place to live. Because there's also a bunch of people who maybe aren't familiar with the Hardy Boys, and they want to be engaged in it in a way that suits television, that isn't just like a book. It doesn't read like a book. And so you have to make some of those changes a lot of times. And I know there is resistance. There's a lot of, especially when it's like an intellectual property, like there's all this drama around the Harry Potter HBO series now, where it's like, oh, is it going to be true to the book? Is it going to be this? Is it going to be that? And sometimes you have to make changes to make it suit television. And so I think that is the right way to approach it.
It's very interesting that you say that, because like Mistletoe Murders is another show that I directed, and that was existing IP as an audio book on Audible, sorry. And now very easily they could have taken that existing series when it was made into like a TV series and do the same crimes, but the creator of the show didn't want to do that. So it's sort of adjacent to the Audible stories, which is kind of interesting because it kind of creates, then you start creating like a bit of like a universe, right? So you can like the show, like the crimes, but you can also listen to the podcast, and it's sort of like you have two different streams of content, similar characters, as opposed to repetition of the same thing.
Right. So then you can enjoy both in sort of different ways, as opposed to going, well, I know what's going to happen here. I know what's going to happen next. Yeah. So that's really cool. That idea of building the universe out. I love.